All right, come on. Just stay afloat for me, all right? This should really work. Stay afloat for me. Stay afloat. Sink right to the bottom. Come on, Sour Patch, you're supposed to work. Oh, I got another one. Just stay right there. All right. Forget the Sour Patches. I got Sour Skittles. All right. Come on, Sour Skittles. Don't fail me now. Just stay afloat. All I need you to do is just stay afloat. That's all I need you to do. Oh, my. It also sank to the bottom. The Sour Skittle didn't work for me. So, y'all, what's up? Minister Warren Hawkins III here, campus pastor for our Stonecrest campus, and I'm in a bit of a situation. Lately, I've been feeling like I can't stay afloat. I mean, I've been feeling like that I've been sinking and drowning to the bottom of the surface. And that's how my life has been feeling. And right now, I'm trying to find a way to find things to stay afloat, to be able to float above the surface of the water. And this is how I'm feeling right now. As the Sour Skittle and the Sour Patches went to the bottom of the surface, that's exactly how I feel. Many of us may feel like that right now, that we can't stay afloat. But actually, I got one more. I got one more. Now, this should work. Okay. A laundry pod. All right. Oh, it's floating. It's floating. It's floating. And maybe many of us may feel like this right now, that temporarily we're doing a good job floating and staying afloat. But as time passes, we started to notice that we actually started beginning to break down and not be able to float anymore. As we continue to get frustrated with online learning, or we continue to get frustrated with having to stay inside. At first, we were able to stay afloat, but now we're breaking down and breaking down and breaking down and breaking down and breaking down. And over time, we're not able to float the same way that we were before. Wow. That feels like me. I was able to stay afloat for a little bit until I started to break down by the water. And what I'm trying to get at is that I need us to be able to stay afloat, right? And sometimes when life comes and puts us in drowning situations, we got to be able to stay afloat. Instead of sinking or drowning, I want us to be able to still float at the top. And a lot of us saw with the Skittles and the Sour Patch Kid, that as soon as I put the Skittles and the Sour Patch Kid inside the water, it went to the bottom immediately. And that's how many of us are. Soon as change comes, soon as life throws us in the water, we immediately go to the bottom without a fight, without trying, without effort. We immediately go to the bottom. And some of us are like the laundry pad, meaning we put up a fight for a good little minute. We're able to adjust. We're able to stay afloat. But as time passes, we begin to sink to the bottom. As look, this laundry pad has sunk all the way to the bottom. It has lost its form. And that's how many of us are. And I've been a little bit of all three, right? The Skittles, the Sour Patch, and the laundry pad. And I want us to be able to stay afloat. So at the end of this message, you're going to know how to stay afloat. And the title of this message is Afloat from the Boat. 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 All right? So say it with me. Afloat from the boat. Matter of fact, say it like this. Afloat from the boat. That's the title of this message. How to stay afloat from the boat. And today we're going to discuss the story of when Jesus walked on water. And many of us know this amazing story, right? And today we're going to be speaking from Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33, the New Living Translation version. And I'm going to be giving you really 4 practical ways on how to stay afloat from the boat, right? And I'm going to be explaining what the boat means shortly, okay? All right, it says, immediately after this, Jesus insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake. And while he sent the people home, after sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Night fell and he was there alone. Meanwhile, the disciples, were in trouble far, far, far away from the land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them, walking on water real smooth. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they was like, "Oh my God, bro!" In their fear, they cried out, "Bro, it's a ghost. Hey, bro, look, it's a ghost, it's a ghost, it's a ghost, bro, it's a ghost, it's a ghost." But Jesus spoke to them, "Bro, chill, dog. Don't be afraid. Take courage. I am here." Then Peter called to him, "Lord, if that's really you, tell me to come walk to you toward the water, on the water. Come on, if that's really you." Jesus was like, "Bruh, yes, come." So Peter went over to the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. Jesus immediately reached down, I always got to save the day, and grabbed him. "Bro, you have so little faith," Jesus said. "Why did you doubt me? I'm Jesus." When they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshiped him. "You really are the Son of God," they exclaimed. So what happened in this story is that Jesus had sent the disciples in the water to get in the boat. And as they were in the boat, chilling, cooling, watching Netflix, playing on their iPhones, scrolling on Instagram, tweeting on Twitter, FaceTiming their homies, a strong wind and a storm came while the disciples were in the boat. Jesus was away, but as the storm was coming on the disciples, Jesus began to walk towards the disciples. And they was like, "Oh my God, it's a ghost, it's a ghost, it's a ghost, it's a ghost. That's not Jesus, right?" And that's the first point I want to make, right? First point I want you to know is that unusual does not mean it's not God, right? And as the disciples were in the boat, a storm came and they saw a man walking on water towards the boat in the midst of a storm. And through the midst of a storm, it's raining, it's dark, right? Lightning going on, right? Their boat just everywhere, and they just feeling unusual, right? And they saw this strange figure just walking on water, something they have never seen before, and they immediately thought it was a ghost. And how many of us do that? Instead of saying that it was God, meaning Jesus, they said, "Oh, that can't be God, that's a ghost." And many of us do this during unusual circumstances. We don't think it's God. And that's the first point I want you to know. Unusual does not mean it's not God. Unusual does not mean it's not God. And just because we may be in the middle of a pandemic, just because we may be in online learning, just because different things may be going on, does not mean that it's not God. And I want you to know that God is walking on the water in the midst of our online learning. God is walking on the water in the midst of different things that are going on. Jesus was not caught off by the storm. Jesus walked on water in the midst of the storm. However, when Jesus was doing that, the disciples were like, "No, it can't be God. It's a ghost." And how many of us do this? "Oh, that can't be God that's causing this online learning. That can't be God because I'm in the house and I'm not able to go outside, or I'm not able to go any places as I want. I'm not able to keep playing basketball, or keep playing my sports. That can't be God." And many of us do this. So I want you to know, in order to stay afloat, you have to know that just because it's unusual does not mean that it's not God. Because Jesus was walking on water, but they called him a ghost, right? So we have to know that just because it's unusual, just because you may be online learning, just because different things may be changing, does not mean that it's not God. And that's the first point I want you to know. The second point is, don't worry about other people. And this is a big one. Don't worry about other people. Because after Peter was like, "Okay, Jesus, if that's you, tell me to come walk out on the water, right? If that's really you and not a ghost." And Jesus said, come walk on the water. And the Bible says that Peter went over to the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus. And remind you, there were 12 disciples, right? And out of all of the 12 disciples, only one got out of the boat and started walking towards the water. And I wanted to explain that, how to stay afloat from the boat. The boat is our comfort zone, right? The boat is us going to school in person. The boat is us being able to go anywhere we please before the pandemic. The boat is being able to do everything that we were able to do before this coronavirus thing hit, right? That was the boat. The boat is our comfort zone, right? And the only person who stepped out of the comfortability of the boat was what? Was who? Peter. All of the rest of the disciples stayed in the boat. It said Peter went over to the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus. Now, the other 11 disciples just decided to stay back. And I want you to know that with everything that's going on, you can't worry about other people. That's the second point. Don't worry about other people. Meaning that you need to step out of the boat. Step out of your comfortability. If school is bringing about many questions, if you're feeling uncomfortable with school, if you're confused about something with online learning, don't be afraid to ask the question. Don't be afraid about being the one who's trying to get the clarity. Don't be afraid about looking goofy or looking strange in front of your classmates. Why? Because the other 11 disciples just stayed back. They were afraid to step out of what was comfortable. And I came to tell you that you got to step out of what's comfortable. That don't be afraid to step outside of the boat. Don't be afraid to participate a lot in class. Just because everybody else trying to say, yeah, it's online learning, I'm cool and I'm kicking back, yeah, I ain't got to do much. Don't be afraid to raise your hand online and answer questions. Don't be afraid to still go above and beyond and step out of the comfort. You may be on a sports team. All your other teammates may say, you know what? Oh, the season is canceled. We don't have to do anything, right? We could just kick back, lay back, eat ice cream all day, right? But I can tell you that step out the comfort of your boat. Be the Peter out of your teammates. Be the Peter out of your classmates, right? Instead of just waiting for the season to start, you may want to go in the front of your house and stretch. You may want to go in the front of your house and shoot some hoops, right? Prepare for the season. Work on your ball handling. You may want to go to the front of the house and get to doing your gymnastics or get to doing your cheerleading routine. Why? Because you are the Peter of your team. You are the Peter of your classroom. Don't be afraid to step out and be different and be special from what everybody else is doing. See, society is going to tell you to be like the rest of the 11 disciples. Just kick back, blend in, be cool, right? But I came to tell you, don't worry about other people. And a lot of us right now, you may even be confused about a question, but you're choosing not to ask it simply because I don't want to look weird in front of my friends. I don't want to look weird in front of everybody else. But don't worry about other people. Be like Peter and be the only one who's willing to step outside of the boat. Even if you have to do it yourself, even if you have to do it by yourself, be the one who's answering questions, participating. Just don't try to be a class clown all on online learning because everybody else feels like they can do it. Still be the Peter of your group, right? So the first point is don't worry about other people. The first point is unusual does not mean it's not God. The second point is don't worry about other people, right? Stop worrying about other people and step outside of the boat. Be the Peter of your group when the rest of the disciples choose to stay inside of the boat, right? Step outside of the boat. Step outside of your comfort. Step outside of your comfort by, right? If you know the sports season has been canceled, go out and still practice your routine anyway. Go out and still prepare for next season anyway, right? If you know that you have a question in class, don't be afraid to ask it because everybody else is trying to be cool and sit back and chill. Ask your question, right? Step outside of the comfort of your boat, right? Don't worry about other people. The third one is don't watch the wind. The third point is do not watch the wind, right? I'm just being silly. Do not watch the wind. It says after Peter went over to the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus, it said Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus, right? But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink, right? Sort of like the laundry detergent, right? That's exactly what Peter did, right? Is that he started to float, right? The laundry detergent, as you see, is floating. It's doing a good job staying afloat. But it said, as Peter began to watch the wind, he took his eyes off Jesus and began to watch the wind, right? And when Peter started to watch the wind, he started to get distracted. And things started to become different because instead of walking on water, Peter then began to float. He no longer was able to walk on the water the same way simply because he took his eyes off Jesus and focused on the storm and started to focus on the wind. And I want you to know that whenever we take our eyes off Jesus, that is the easiest way to float. And as you can see, it's no longer really floating anymore. That is the easiest way to float and deteriorate and to not be the same as when we take our eyes off Jesus. And that's what I want you to know. Don't watch the wind. Don't watch the wind. Don't take your eyes off Jesus, right? Do not take your eyes off Jesus. Whenever you find yourself stepping out of the boat, meaning something that's uncomfortable, stepping out of the boat of your own comfortability, you have to keep your eyes on Jesus. You got to say, you know what? I know this online learning is different. I know these things are different in my life right now, but I'm keeping my eyes on Jesus. Whenever you focus on what's not good, whenever you focus on different things that are distractions, you begin to drown. You begin to sink. The easiest way to sink is to not keep your eyes on Jesus. And that's exactly what happened to Peter. It says, but when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Peter was walking on water. And I want you to know that Peter was doing the same thing that Jesus was doing until he began to not focus on Jesus. And when we focus on Jesus, we'll begin to do some miraculous and amazing things. Meaning maybe you weren't a straight A student at first, but when you keep your eyes on Jesus and stay focused on what's positive, you'll begin to like, what? I was never a straight A student. Now I'm getting all these A's. When you begin to focus on Jesus, you'll begin to say, you know what? I never wanted to, work hard outside of sports. I never wanted to work hard for this or that, but now that I'm keeping my eyes on Jesus, I'm starting to actually like doing these things, these new things. I never really liked school, but I'm starting to really like this online learning. Whenever you begin to keep your eyes on Jesus, positive things will happen. The problem is a lot of us like to focus on the negative. Don't watch the wind. The wind meaning the negative. A lot of us, I can't talk to my friends as much as I used to. I can't see my friends in person. I miss, having games in person. I miss my cheerleading games. I miss going to practice in person. A lot of us spend so much time complaining. And when we do that, we actually are just setting ourselves up to sink. Simply because while you're not watching Jesus, you are watching the wind. And if you really notice, all of these points intersect. The first point, just unusual does not mean it's not God. That's the first point, right? So when you know that it unusual does not mean it's not God, you would know that, oh yeah, just because school is online, just because, sports season is canceled, just because different things are happening, like, oh, this is God. Like, just because it's unusual does not mean that it's not God, right? It's not a ghost, it's God, right? So when you know that, you would know that you don't have to try to, the second point, you know you don't have to worry about other people, right? Because you know that you can be your best self. You know that you don't have to worry. You know that God put us in a situation and that something positive is going to come about. And with the third point, you know that you don't have to watch the wind, right? You don't have to watch the wind. You don't have to watch the negative. You don't have to watch the different things that are changing in the world, because when we know what we know about wind is that wind, it comes and it goes. Wind blows its breezes. Then it stops, then it blows its breezes again, right? That's what we know about the wind. And wind changes, right? Wind changes from different in different aspects. So don't watch the different things that are changing. When you know to just stay focused on Jesus, then that's how you know that you can stay afloat. And the last point is, you will get back in the boat. You will get back in the boat. It says that pretty much that after Jesus began to watch the wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, he shouted. Save me, save me, save me. And Jesus reached out and he saved Peter, right? And Jesus said, you had little faith. You had little faith. If only you had good faith, or if only you had faith, you would have walked on water, right? And I want you to know that you will get back in the boat. Why? And what does this mean? It says that when they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshipped him. You really are the Son of God, they exclaimed. So they climbed back in the boat, right? And this message is afloat from the boat. I'm trying to teach you how to stay afloat from the comfort zone of, being in school, in person and pretty much everything before COVID, right? I'm trying to teach you how to stay afloat from the boat. The boat is our comfort. And I want you to know that you will get back in the boat. It says, when they climbed back in the boat, the wind stopped. Peter was sinking. Jesus helped Peter up and they climbed back in the boat, which means that the storm is only temporary. It said when they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped, meaning that there is going to be a day where we're going to go back to school in person. There is going to be a day when we are going to go back to church in person. There is going to be a day when sports will continue, when your extracurricular activities will continue. It says that they climbed back into the boat. So this storm is just only for a moment. And guess what? When you fall, Jesus will catch you. And if you feel as though that you've been sinking in online learning, that you've been sinking and feeling lonely, feeling discouraged, Jesus will catch you. Your parents will catch you. Your teachers will catch you. You just have to be willing to call for help. Because, and that's the point that I didn't even plan on sharing, is that as Peter began to sink, Peter said, "Save me, Lord, save me, Lord, save me, Lord, save me, Lord." Peter just did sink and was like, "Oh, whoa, 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 whoa." All right. And I almost fell. Shh, don't tell nobody. But no, he just didn't sink and was like, "Oh, whoa." He said, "Hey, Jesus, help me, Jesus, I'm sinking." Whenever you feel as though you are sinking, you have to communicate it. And right now, if you feel as though you are sinking in loneliness, sinking in confusion of online learning, sinking in missed opportunities of missing how things used to be before COVID, if you feel as though you are sinking, I need you to speak up. Reach out to myself or Pastor Charles via email. Reach out to your parents. Reach out to a friend who you trust. Reach out to your teachers. If you feel as though you are sinking in online learning, reach out to your teacher. Communicate that. Remember, all of these points coincide. You don't have to try to be like the rest of the disciples and stay back on the boat. You don't have to be like them. You don't have to be like the rest of the disciples, meaning the people in your class. Oh, I don't have to ask the question because I don't want to look weird. I don't want to look like I'm odd. I don't want to look like I'm confused. Ask for help. I don't want to look like I'm sinking. Don't be afraid to look like you're sinking. It's okay. Ask for help. Jesus saved Peter when he asked. And all you got to do is just communicate. Mom, Dad, I'm feeling like this. Pastor Warren, Pastor Charles, I'm feeling like this. Hey, teacher, I had a question about this. It's okay. So the first point, unusual does not mean it's not God. Don't worry about other people. Don't watch the wind. You will get back in the boat. I'm saying one more time. The first point is unusual does not mean it's not God. 2, don't worry about the other people. 3, don't watch the wind. 4, you will get back in the boat. Meaning that this is only temporary. This is only temporary. And if you keep all of these 4 points, plus everything else that was discussed today, you will be able to stay afloat from the boat. You will be like this chapstick and you will be able to float in any situation, in any circumstance, no matter how much the winds of life try to brush up against you and knock you down and push you away and cause up disruption and disturbance, you will still be able to rise to the top and stay afloat. Thank you all. I hope this word has blessed you, and we will see you all next week. Hey, see you soon.